out and make the right decision. It benefits in everybody. The Caribbean Court of Justice is what I come to promote. So when that time we just stick, make sure you vote and vote believe it. Let us get it right. I say everything has to fix. One Caribbean, one community. CCJ, yes, they have the remedy. For the CCJ, yeah. Come November 6th, every Caribbean island I calling out one and all. For the CCJ, yeah. Yes, the CCJ. That's it. Vote yes to the CCJ.
Get up. It's time to vote for Caribbean Court of Justice. Man are ready to vote. The people ready to vote. I said they're ready to vote. We voting yes for Caribbean Court of Justice. We voting yes, 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 yes for Caribbean Court of Justice. I'm telling you, I go in and vote. You go in and vote. We go in and vote. Caribbean Court of Justice. She go in and vote. He go in and vote. They go in and vote. Caribbean Court of Justice. Grenada is a little island down here in the Caribbean. We've been through a lot in my lifetime, even revolution. And I must mention Hurricane Ivan. My dream is to see all the island come together as one. We voting yes for Caribbean Court of Justice. We voting yes, 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 yes for Caribbean Court of Justice. I'm telling you, I go in and vote. You go in and vote. We go in and vote. Caribbean Court of Justice. She go in and vote. He go in and vote. They go in and vote. Caribbean Court of Justice. My people, remember, November the 6th, Caribbean Court of Justice is the best choice. Vote yes, the Caribbean Court of Justice. Up, 2, 3, 4.
The National Democratic Congress is not and has never been opposed to the CCJ. In fact, previous administrations led by the NDC have done lots of work to push forward the work of the CCJ, and that can be attested to by Brother Peter David. The CCJ is another step towards the achievement of Caribbean unity. And in the NDC, we know that eventually, one way or the other, the CCJ in its appellate jurisdiction will become a reality, not only in Grenada, but throughout the Caribbean.
Our Grenadian people are proudly Caribbean, and we continually strengthen the bonds of the people of the region. Together, we embrace our collective destiny.
We are the children of Marcus Garvey and Bob Marley, Vivian Richards and David Runner.
As Caribbean as West Indies cricket, as Caribbean as the University of the West Indies.
We are reggae, we are soca, we are one vibration.
Break the chain of colonialism.
Break the chains of colonialism.
The Caribbean Court of Justice. Proudly ours.
The CCJ will be a Caribbean court, reflective of Caribbean culture, Caribbean values, and everything Caribbean. I ask this question: which court do you think will adequately reflect the views of Caribbean people to those who worry? Will it be the Privy Council? Persons in Britain? Persons who have never lived in the Caribbean? Persons who don't share our values? Persons who don't understand what we stand for and what values we uphold? Or would it be our people who have grown among us, who live among us, who attend the churches we attend, who attend the schools we attend, who are members of the soccer teams that we are members of? Who best do you think will reflect us?
It's about time. It's long overdue. We should be there because, you know, get out of the British thing, and so we are all one Caribbean, and I think that will be binding us more together.
Yours is yours. Privy Council is not ours. No matter what we do, what we say, no matter what ties we had to England, this is the time to keep divesting ourselves of those strings that tie us unnecessarily.
There's nothing in this bill for any partisan political party. Nothing. There's only one thing in this. It's for the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, and for the Caribbean region as a whole.
Justice has to be accessible, affordable, and swift.
The Caribbean court of justice, reaching one unity, coming together as one. Hear what we say. When you see November 6th, we voting against all the CCJ. Come out and make the right decision. It benefits in everybody. The Caribbean court of justice is what I come to promote. So when that time we just stick, make sure you vote and vote, believe it. Let us get it right. I say everything has to fix. One Caribbean, one community. CCJ, yes, they have the remedy. Vote the CCJ, yeah. Come November 6th, every Caribbean island I calling out one and all. Vote the CCJ, yeah.
Vote yes for the CCJ, that's it. Vote yes for the CCJ,
Well, good morning again and welcome to the post-cabinet briefing for this week. I am Press Secretary Philomena Robertson, thanking you for joining us. Special welcome to the members of the media in this room with us today, and to those of you who are joining us via the live broadcast, whether on television or via the internet. Welcome aboard. This morning we have with us the Prime Minister, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, and he has a number of significant announcements to make for us this morning. So without any further ado, I would call on the Prime Minister to make an opening statement, following which, of course, we will entertain questions from you, the media.
Thank you, Press Secretary. My brothers and sisters of the media, I take this opportunity to welcome you here this morning, which is Wednesday, not the normal Tuesday, because as you know, I was away. I wanted to take this opportunity to do this press briefing today, and I think it was appropriate that it's coming on the heels of or the eve of our Thanksgiving Day, which is October 25th. My own view is that we may have a lot to thank the Almighty for, and therefore it's very appropriate that I take this opportunity to do this press briefing on the eve of this Thanksgiving. And to make the point, most countries do in fact have a Thanksgiving Day. And maybe what we want to do as a nation is to look at October 25th as not just a day for Thanksgiving for one event, but for Thanksgiving for all that God has given us, which includes whatever event that I might be happy with as an individual. So that is something I think might be before the social partners. So hopefully next year we could have a broad concept of Thanksgiving, not limited just to one particular area. And in starting off this, I do want to mention that there were, as the press secretary intimated, that we have a number of significant events and issues that we believe that we as a nation should be proud of. As you are very much aware as members of the press, that we do have issues that we have to continue to deal with and clearly concern us as a nation, but we should always remember to thank the Almighty and to also thank ourselves for the positive things. Sometimes we spend all the time in our lives of dealing with negatives, and we forget that we have a lot of positive and we don't remember them. So I just want to point out that we do have a number of significant events that are ongoing and of course are coming. One of the most pressing one at this point is the national referendum that is coming up on the November 6th, and that we all certainly as a government is calling on the entire population and all citizens to participate and to give their views one way or the other. In other words, the government responsibility is to put the issues before the population responsibility is to participate or not participate as they choose, and to participate the way in which they wish to participate, whether they wish to vote yes or to vote no. As a government and a political organization, we certainly have recorded our own position that we strongly believe a yes vote is necessary. Also, we are on the throne speech, which is a prelude to our national budget, will be on November 19th. And that, of course, will come after the proroguing of Parliament, which will be a few days before that. Normally, as you recall, each year we prorogue Parliament at least once, and then that to open it again, the Parliament to function, we would have to reconvene it with a throne speech, and therefore that's the same thing. The reason this, and usually we have a few weeks or month or week or so in between the proroguing and the closing and the opening, but because of the national referendum on November 6th, we have no choice but to almost close and open almost simultaneously to satisfy our constitutional responsibility. Because as you recall, as you would know, when you prorogue, everything dies, all issues die. So if we prorogue the parliament before November 6th, it means that the bill that the people will be voting for on November 6th will no longer be available. So in other words, we can't hold a referendum on November 6th if we prorogue the parliament before. So is the formulation of our laws that we have to meet, and we don't want to make any mistakes, because clearly it become, whatever action we take will become null and void. So the 2019 budget, therefore, will be delivered after the throne speech on November 21st, and of course, debate will take place after that. So maybe most likely 2-3 days after that, depending on the time members take for us to do their presentation and reports and debates on that budget. And of course, after this, of course, there are other things that will come up. We're dealing with Christmas season almost on us. I also want to report as political leader of the New National Party that our convention is on October 28th, that is Sunday. And therefore we are going to be kept extremely busy with all the meetings being held leading up to the national referendum at all villages throughout the length and breadth of the country. In fact, you will notice that in the coming 10 days or so before the referendum, there will be enormous amount of activity at the village level and constituency level. We are ensuring that we won't be using taxpayers' resources in any significant way as we move forward, because we have a lot of issues that we require financing, and we don't believe, while we have to support the referendum process, we don't believe that we should be spending significant amount of money on that particular issue. Now, I want to deal on the state of the economy, because I think, as I said, we should thank the Almighty for His blessings for where we are as a country. And I make the point over and over, the successes of the government and what the accolades that have been given at this particular time is not related just to the actions of the government. In other words, everyone in the country should take ownership of whatever pluses that come to the country. And similarly, whenever there are negatives, we all have, to some extent, have to take ownership because the country name is involved. So I just want to point out that preliminary data for the first half of 2018 indicate that the economy remains very strong and is poised to experience its 6th consecutive year of growth. That, in fact, is quite an achievement. And it must be noted that there is increased economic activity in construction, tourism, transport, retail, trade sectors, and of course in services in general, whether it's education services or other services. We are seeing tremendous increases, and it's the case of St. George University, the case in point, where, as you know, is over 22% of the GDP of the country. So whatever happens at St. George University affects the overall growth in the economy of the country. As we've seen also expansion in private sector activities. And as we have always said, a country is known to be progressing forward when its private sector is growing. If a country's growth is based on the public sector initiative, in other words, government or public sector actions, it is not the best situation. Private sector must grow, hopefully more than the public sector as a whole. It must be pointed out that Grenada's economy grew by, when all the numbers have been tabulated and, of course, analyzed, it is proven that the expected growth of the economy should be about 5.2% in 2018. And that, in effect, is a clear example of what is taking place in the country, given that we're just coming out of a structural adjustment program where we were limited in what we can do. And it also demonstrates, after all the assessment is done, that our economy in 2017 grew by 5.1%. Grenada remains, therefore, the fastest growing economy in the region, averaging an average growth rate of 5% since 2013. That, again, is an example. I've just come in from a meeting in St. Vincent of the OECS, the OECS Secretariat, the heads of government, and, of course, we also discussed the LEAT issue, which I would mention later. And that was verified because we had a report from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, which would give an assessment before that of the state of the economy of the sub-region. The growth prospects for Grenada, therefore, are positive, barring, of course, any unexpected shocks, because, you know, while we're talking here, we could have a hurricane tomorrow or some other disaster, storm surge or something, which can affect clearly the activities in the country as a whole. But we expect that growth will continue to be very positive and robust in the coming months and years ahead of us. Grenada's image on the international stage and regional stage. It is well known that in a certain period of our governance of this country, that our image was not so good. Not only we had a confidence level in our country in economic activity, and you saw it playing out itself in a lack of private sector initiative and job creation in the country and job losses, in fact. But we also noticed significantly that we were not, the image outside there were being affected regionally and internationally as we reneged on many of our regional commitments, whether it's CDB, UWI, World Bank, IMF payments, we were in trouble. So we did suffer. But it's happy to note that in the international stage today that Grenada is being looked upon in a very positive sense. In other words, we also being seen as a poster boy used by the IMF international community and the regional institution as a success story in many respects. Grenada, therefore, has just recently handed over chairmanship of Small States Forum to Fiji, the country Fiji, at a meeting in Bali in Indonesia. As you know, I was out for almost a week, more than a week, in Bali, handing over the chairmanship. And we also felt that we must commend the World Bank for the leadership and the level of engagement that it provided us throughout the period of my chairmanship of this important organization. I must note also that in my speech at that forum, that one of the successes recorded was the increase in allocations for small states. And we're moving from $0.7 billion, which was agreed to in 2017, that is now $1.5 billion in 2018. And out of the allocation of $0.7 billion, which is 700 million US dollars, Grenada was allocated 65 million US dollars. We already got 30 million US dollars of that, which works out to be 81 million EC dollars. So if it moves from from $0.7 billion in 2017 to 1.5, I'm expecting that Grenada's share would at least be doubled in the next period. Our job is to, based on our performance and the things that we are doing, is to not only be doubled, but much more than that. But as chairman of Small States, remember, I had a responsibility not just to seek support for Grenada, but to seek for all of the country. What is significant, friends, is that among the countries and the monies allocated, Grenada is the only country that have already received some of this money already. So the others have to do what is being done, and the criteria is set out. While the money is there for you, if you do not do certain things, you won't receive it. I also need to point out important note that it has been called the World Bank's first fiscal resilience and blue growth development policy operation. This IDA support of $1.5 billion in 2018. Also must be pointed out, having given up the chairmanship of small states, we are now asked to take an even bigger role on the international stage. Grenada has now been named as now president of the 4th Assembly of SIDS-DOCS. SIDS-DOCS says this: it's a sustainable energy and climate resilience initiative, and it's a registered global intergovernmental organization whose mandate is to assist member countries of small island states called AOSIS in capital letters, which will transform the energy sectors of all countries internationally. That, in other words, this one is even a bigger role. Small states was 65 countries. This one is every country international. And it also will be addressing the adaptation issue to climate changes. It is anticipated, friends, that during the presidency in SIDS-DOCS Foundation, the SIDS-DOCS Foundation will be launched with the goal of promoting education and awareness of the organization mission, in addition to mobilizing financial and technical resources for all countries. It must be noted, and I'm not the person that could talk about myself, so I have to do it, but I have no choice. But it's not something I enjoy. That I was recently given the award as Finance Minister of the Caribbean, and that award was given at the annual meeting of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund in Bali. As I said it over, as I have said over and over, friends, that this award is indicative of the growing recognition of Grenada's economic successes at the regional and international levels. The editorial committee responsible for selecting awardees recognized Grenada's economic performance. This award was given for the first time to Grenada over the last 5 years, describing it as highly impressive. And I'm sure that many of you would have had a copy of the document and the rationale for the award given. Economists and analysts have noted the fact that we were able to continue growing our economy and improving our fiscal situation even after an IMF program was successfully, an IMF supported program, by the way, because it was our homegrown program supported by the IMF, was completed. They further described Grenada's economy as a turnaround story involving rapid debt reduction, better administration of revenues, and fiscal surpluses, among other achievements. It was pointed out that in 2013, we had a debt to GDP ratio of 108, and today we are seeing on a debt to GDP ratio of 60%. So we're looking at least a 40% plus reduction in just 5 years, and they consider that an enormous feat in itself. Therefore, I'm saying this, I'm humbled by the fact that this award is really won, not just for me, but the entire country. The persons who have made the sacrifices when we embarked on the Homegrown Structural Adjustment Program, the team within the Ministry of Finance for the expert advice given, and of course our regional brothers and sisters, and my cabinet colleagues who work to sell this difficult initiative, and the social partners, trade unions, business community, churches and all, who stood with us, the country, every step of the way. In addition to the economic successes, and sometimes you have growth and you have economic fiscal balances positively, so primary surpluses and so on, and you have no jobs. That's not the case with this one. It was well known that when we took office, that the unemployment rate was at least 40%. The last statistical data of unemployment given late last year showed that we are down to 23%. And this is not my numbers. These are numbers of the Central Statistical Office, which is backed by support and analysis and observation by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and of course the international community, the World Bank and other institutions. The World Statistical Association, as which Grenada is a member, has also given expert advice. In other words, we are following models of statistical work and data collection in the international arena. And it is well known, as you know, that I'm also a professional statistician in my own right, having worked for the same international institution when I was in Washington. So I'm not speaking here as just Prime Minister, as a statistician in my own right. And you know, I'm backing this at also a professional level. In the devotion program this year, colleagues, we have this year alone, for the last half of the year, we got 2,810 persons currently being employed right through for the last 6 months of the year. One might say, well, that is temporary employment, but at least providing significant temporary employment for 2,810 persons. And since their rotation, a lot more persons are in fact touched by that number for the last 6 months. We're just saying permanently we'd have 2,810, but that's not the only number of persons. You would say maybe 3 times that have been touched, but of course with less amount of time per person. There are 382 crews with 7 persons in each crew, 127 supervisors, and 9 monitors. The expenditure for this period, for the rest of the year, for this period is $6.6 million, while the expenditure for the first period of the bushing was $7 million. So you're looking at a total for the half of the year of $13+ million. In addition, colleagues, environmental wardens have been established in all constituencies to undertake road maintenance, including drainage, cutting of overhangings, culvert cleaning, and maintaining a compound, government building, public facilities, public spaces such as cemeteries, community centers, and beaches. These persons, over 400 persons benefiting, comprising 64 crews with 6 persons in each crew and 16 supervisors. And this is not temporary. These are permanent employees for the whole period until, of course, if government fails to have the resources to continue them. But these are permanent employees, not like the bushing, which is temporary. The Imani program, the orientation and launch of the new batch of trainees is scheduled for October 20th, was in fact implemented on October 26th. Yes. We have 800 young persons across the country in the Imani program. And in addition to that, we will have 500 young men. We call them as part of the Empower program, so that's a male program. Because one of the reasons we came up with this specific program is because we noted that most times when we put out ads for people application, persons applying for the Imani, over 80%, 90% were only women. And we know our society is made up of men and women. And if the men are marginalized, don't think we only hear from them. the girls will hear from them, and the social budget will hear from them, the prison budget will hear from them. And that's not the voices we want to hear. So we better take steps to make sure we find them and help them, because they are our children and our grandchildren. So we have now agreed to take in 500 in addition to the 800 Imani. So you're looking at 1,300 additional persons being taken from the unemployment line into some active participation of work and building of their own personal skills to be able to make the kind of contribution to their country. So given what I'm saying, you're looking at maybe you're talking 5,000 to 6,000 people in the last 2 weeks will be engaged for the rest of this year in reasonable employment. And if your employment line numbers are 40,000, right? And you have over 5,000 persons given employment, that's 1/8 of the employment. And 1/8 means what? 12.5%. Those who've done a little fraction and a little percentage in school, right? I did some. All right, if you could check me, 12.5, which means if the unemployment rate was 23%, if we subtract 12.7 from 23, we might be getting something less than 12. This math, my numbers tells me. So we're not doing too badly. We're not saying that they will necessarily be the case all the time. These numbers are very significant, and I think it's something that we need to talk about. Government and the private sector, therefore, we are saying should play a role in the financing of the Imani program and the helping of the young people. The government doesn't have a responsibility by itself to see that the country is socially stable and stable in a general sense. The private sector and all concerned have a responsibility. So the government should not have to pay for every Imani that's ordered training. If we take them under government departments to train, then we clearly have to pay the entire amount. But if they're working in your business and training and providing a service, you have a responsibility to be able to pay something. What we have noticed is that some businesses have been attempting to use the money as workers to move away from their own responsibility of financing the operation. Government should not be increasing and playing the role of employment for everybody in the country. And similarly, government should not be subsidizing private sector initiative as far as staffing is concerned. So we are saying we should share the burden 50-50. Those who are refusing to participate, we said, okay, thank you. When you're ready to participate, we'll move the money out of your business, even if we had to take them fully into government and find a place for them, because we're not going to send them home to make a commitment to them. All right? So that is where we are as far as that's concerned. We also, with the project that we're talking about with the Empower, would also provide training in creating opportunities for rewarding experiences, numeracy and literacy training, apprenticeship training, direct skills, performing arts, sports, and small business. In fact, even this morning, from Calypso King, who's still a Jama, was with me this morning, and he's one of those who offered to be involved in such a program. Maybe some of the young men on the blocks in the Empower program may not necessarily want to go in some firm and provide a skill, but they want to be able to get involved in the culture. Ujamo have a studio. He may be able to train them into certain skills in providing music, or they themselves learning to play a particular music. Next thing you hear, some other guy in the block might turn out to be one of the best musicians in the country. So we're not limiting the training, the Empower program and the Imani program to any particular area. Some people want the academic to go to TAMCC, get more education, get the scholarship to go further off educationally. Some people want to go on the job to become the better carpenters, masons. Some people might want to be counselors, may want to be teachers. We provide all range of possibilities because we believe all of us are born with certain skills and positiveness, positive activities, but some of us have different ones. So we should give everybody an opportunity to make a useful contribution in their lives. All right, the program also will be launched also in Carriacou. So everything we do here, we also associate activities. Outreach to young persons in the block will not normally attend organized consultative sessions would be some of the objectives that I mentioned before. And we're reaching places all over the country, like, for example, gun battle in Guava. I don't even like to hear the word gun battle, but that's what they call it, so I repeat it for what it's worth. Mount Tranquil, we have one is called in St. David's. They have one in nearby, they call it what? Saigon. We have Saigon in Korea. There's another one. Huh? Baghdad. We go in all them cities. We're reaching men all over the place. And the more we touch those young men, is the more you'll see less problems in our communities and in our society as a whole. Colleagues, as I deal with issues of economic activity and opportunity in the country, you recall that the government has a responsibility for ensuring that business operates in an atmosphere that creates a positive image for the country. We're very concerned with what was taking place at one of our, many areas of our country, including government, all right? We are very concerned, but we are very, very concerned as to what was taking place at Rex Grenadian as a hotel. My view and the view of many, almost everyone, except a few who refused to see, my view was that we had to do something about ensuring that Rex operates as a serious hotel, because whatever happens there affects the image of the country. It's one of the bigger hotels in the country. The services were deteriorated, no matter what is said. The workers there were extremely unhappy. Their salaries were one of the worst in the country. The security of their jobs was one of the worst. The situation had becoming very difficult for government to stomach. And we've been working with the Hotel Rex for years. There is this perception that government just woke up one morning. In fact, the previous government had entertained the thought of dealing with that particular facility. They didn't have the courage to go to do what they had to do. But we felt that it couldn't continue. So government, after all the discussion, had decided that we must take action. But before we took action, we knew that government is not in a position, does not have the money to pay for any hotel, period. And government does not want to run any hotel. Government is failing to run many of the things that it must run. So to take on another additional facility that is only compounding our problem. And therefore, there was no intention, although some people want to spin what we are doing, that government want to take the hotel, government want to run hotel, government want to run Grenada electricity service. We have no intention of running anything, particularly this time that private sector is taking care, can in fact, government has been relieving itself of some government institutions that are poorly run and asking the private sector either to join partnership or to take over completely. And you know we've been doing that with estates and other things like this. So we have no such intention. I want to make it very clear. But several businesses and hoteliers and hotel chains come forward and said, look, this is one of the best sites in the country. And we are prepared to buy it. But clearly they were having difficulties. So they approached us, not just one, many. There are two prominent ones. And government was leaning heavily to work with Sunwing Group from Canada, whose CEO is Stephen Hunter. We had a couple of years now in serious discussions. When we were convinced that Stephen Hunter's group had the resources and had the necessary operation that can help improve tourism product in the country, we decided that they're the group that we likely would want to see take over that hotel. So, in addition to taking over the hotel, Sunwing Group also has a fleet of planes. Wherever they have invested in hotels, they have made sure that they fill the hotels because they are also transporting their passengers to the client countries involved. So we thought having additional airline support in addition to hotel space, we killing two birds, as it is said, with one stone. So that's one of the reasons we settled on Sunwing. But clearly they were in discussion with the Rex, and Rex was not moving. They were not able to conclude. Therefore, government felt they had no choice to do one thing, was to look at acquisition, and we did move. The hotel he said he did not want the government to acquire. The government felt that it was necessary to do so. By the way, Antigua government did the same thing. Well, of course, court decisions are based on judges and the courts. And sometimes the courts take its own time, not always thinking of what the country's needs are. We have said over and over as a government, we want nothing to do with any interference in the court system, justice system. We feel that it's an independent system and we totally support it. I'm one who firmly believes I don't want anything to do with any country where the executive branch is in charge of making decisions for the justice system, because that puts too much power in one area in the country. So we felt very strongly. But all we have been asking for, not just in the Rex Grenadian, is like government. If you have something to do, just do the job. What we find about the courts is that they take ages to make a simple decision. Now we have three branches of decision making as far as the court. The High Court, the Supreme Court, and the Privy Council. Hopefully we move on November 6th to the CCJ to replace the Privy Council. So if you make a decision at the High Court level and I don't like it, then I go to the next stage, which is the Supreme Court. And if you make the decision in the Supreme Court and I still don't like it, then I go to the final court. Now, when the final court makes the decision, whether I like it or not, I have to abide by it. The problem I have, therefore, is not the decision making, it's the fact that they don't make decision on time, and therefore cause a lot of problems. We have lost a lot of business. We have lost a lot of activities. Now, having said this, while we were doing what we have to with the court system and waiting on judgment, Sunwing was also negotiating on behind the scene, and they kept us involved. So the same group we are interested in giving is the same one that was negotiating with Rex. The problem initially with Rex is that they have three properties in the region: Antigua, Rex, Grenada, and St. Lucia. They felt they were prepared to settle with the one in Grenada, but they wanted all. They did not, when they sell, they feel it must be all of them. Finally, I think they have agreed with Sunwing to sell all. Sunwing initially didn't want to buy all. They were more interested in the Grenada property. So they, about 3 weeks ago, they have made a final agreement and signed a document. The point I'm making is Grenada, the government of Grenada needs as much credit as anyone for Sunwing coming. They were the group that we were involved with from stage one, even if we had got the acquisition in place. But what is significant about the acquisition is this. Antigua, as I said before, moved to acquire. So I was just in St. Vincent with the Prime Minister of Antigua. And I say, well, we are happy now. Rex's property is now being sold to Sunwing, so all of us will benefit from Sunwings. The Prime Minister of Antigua said, well, Keith, I'm glad for you, but we didn't need Sunwings because the court already has given us judgment in our favor for the acquisition of Rex. So the Rex in St. Lucia, in Antigua, is not in Rex hands anymore, it's in the government of Antigua's hands. So it seems like Soundwings would have to negotiate with the Antiguan government as it relates to the Rex in Antigua. To me, it doesn't matter as far as we are concerned, whether in fact it was government in a position to negotiate with Soundwings, as Soundwings now finalized with. The main point is we'll have a better hotel, expanded opportunities for tourism, better condition for workers, and they're now going to be expanding the hotel. They indicated to me it'll be at least several hundred more rooms than we have now. The CEO and personnel involved in Soundwings got hold of me yesterday and indicated they want to come down in the middle of November with architects and others to look at the expansion of Rex. They said they want to give priority to Grenada first as far as Rex is concerned, but they're going to be moving on the St. Lucian property also. So I just want to make this point for what is what I think is important for us to point out. And colleagues also on the issue of, only yesterday I was in St. Vincent and we had discussion on Liat. As you know, the problem, almost a recurring decimal of problems with Liat and the financing of Liat. We've taken some decisions that we'll be looking at a new structure of Liat. And some of our governments, including Grenada, who are not highly involved in the shareholding of Liat in recent times, have always said that it had no problem with Liat continuing its operation. What we wanted to see, what a better run Liat, and providing more efficient and expanded service to the region. So Grenada's, like St. Lucia's, come as a now indicated and agreed to participate more fully in Liat, but a new revamped Liat in the sense that the structure must change. Liat must be able to increase its efficiency as it appears to be doing in the last few weeks or few months, not the historic one, and be able to become a profitable business. Providing service, government invests in their money, but governments must not control the operations of Liat. I'm against public sector running a private business. Liat has to be a private business. Government may invest money and it gets money from shareholding profits when that operation makes profit, but not be involved in the management. Barbados, Prime Minister Barbados has taken the same position as Grenada. They will in fact, they are the majority shareholders right now, 49%. They say they will continue to invest, they'll continue to participate, but with a new Liat atmosphere and a structure as far as Liat's operation. Similarly, St. Lucia has made the same commitment. So if you hear Grenada has not come forward, it's because we are not satisfied with the structure. But we have given our commitment with a new structure that is creating an atmosphere of business and expanded service and reduce costs of tickets and other stuff in the region. We are very much into that. And also, yesterday I had a full day from St. Vincent after being there the day before. On yesterday morning we started about 6:30. I got in here last night at past 10 o'clock because from St. Vincent I was asked by the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, given the problems that occur in Trinidad recently, and we all know that Trinidad, when we had our problem, the first Prime Minister that visited Grenada and sat with me home in Happy Hill because Moncloa was destroyed was Prime Minister Manning of Trinidad and Tobago. When Trinidad is hurting, then Grenada hurts badly too, because given the amount of the relationship we've had. So I spent a couple of hours in Trinidad last night with the Prime Minister, and we discussed, gave me up to date on what was taking place. So I had a chance with aerial overview to see some of the water that's still left in people's private places and in some of the properties in Trinidad and the problems created there. But we also discussed a number of issues of the CSME and trade and other issues that we'll be having a major conference of heads of government in Trinidad on the 3rd of December this year to look at what is now taking place with CSME and some of the problems, and look at how we can move and aggressively get CSME to function more effectively and to give the region the promise that we gave them several years ago when we started this entire process. I do also want to talk briefly about the OECD and the CBI program, and to point out that we know that all citizenship by investment program in the region, as well as Malta, Cyprus, and other countries with CBI and residence by investment programs, they have been blacklisted by the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. By the way, we discussed that issue also in St. Vincent yesterday and agreed, and because we had the OECS meeting also, and we agreed on a joint approach, not Grenada going by itself, because since they are blacklisting all the countries, we felt that we should give a joint response and include some of the bigger countries that are involved in the blacklisting process, how we can go forward. We further noted that the growing importance of the CBI revenue stream to small island developing states, I can tell you this, Grenada has done very well financially. Part of the reason for the economic growth in the country has been the CBI program. Right now, I can tell you, this year we are earning over $60–70 million in the CBI program already. So you could imagine what it will do for us in the coming months and years ahead. So we believe that it's necessary, but we must have a CBI that does not create problems for us. So if there are problems raised by anyone or any institution or country, we have to examine it, see how we can correct any weakness, and move on. The government of Grenada therefore understands the intent, while we do not agree with what they have done, but we understand the intent of this OECD, that's the European Union countries, analysis, and of course we therefore will deal with their concern and perception that we are circumventing the common reporting standards of CRS in using the citizenship by investment program as a way to do so. We therefore support the OECD efforts to ensure that all citizens and financial institutions adhere to reporting requirements of the CRS and rightfully report offshore financial assets to the country of residence. It should be noted that the vast majority of individuals who apply for the CBI programs are interested in the ease of travel and the sense of security a second citizenship gives them, that are conflict-free and peaceful in the countries that they reside. We hasten to add that Grenada is a signatory to the common reporting standards. Nevertheless, the government of Grenada commits to working closely with the OECD to raise the level of comfort as it relates to a CBI program. We have no interest or appetite in allowing any individual to evade taxes, which is the major concern of the countries involved, rightfully due to the country that they are supposed to pay taxes to. We are serious and a responsible member of the international community, and we would therefore not want to encourage anyone to go against breaking any rules. And we also want to report that we believe that the security checks that we are using for persons coming here, note that was not the main reason for the CBI, for the OECD blacklisting us, is what they perceive as the evasion of taxes. But we know that deep down they also might be concerned about that. So we are doing everything to continue to keep that area very tight and to tighten it even further. We in Grenada feel strongly that we do not want anyone getting a Grenada's passport. So far we have not had in this period of implementation of that program where anyone that we have given CBI program to support to has been a problem as far as security is concerned. So, colleagues, therefore, I think I've given you enough, and I think it's an opportunity as I end this morning discourse with you to now get an opportunity to ask any questions related to what I just mentioned or any other issue. I know you all might have other issues. I see my friend from the middle there smiling with me. But my special Grenada, what? Today Grenada or Grenada? What is it? Yeah? The new today. All right. Okay. Thank you, my dear. So, colleagues, floor is yours. Press Secretary.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please identify yourself and the media institution that you represent and proceed to pose your question to the Prime Minister.
Good morning. Karima Lewis, the New Today newspaper. I'm gonna start. I have a few questions for you. But first, in relation to the Rex issue, well, no longer an issue, but the sale of Rex. Has the hotel really been sold? Because I'm looking at a release from the Sunwing site, and it's speaking more of a partnership than a sale.
They are majority shareholders.
Okay.
That's the key.
Okay.
So Rex still maintain a certain percentage. We don't have a problem with that, because they would be making the decision. Because if you invest that amount of money, you want to be the one making the decision. So that's going to be the key, and they're the one investing enormously and heavily in the project, in the new project.
Okay. In relation to, you spoke about the delay in decisions from the court. There were some concerns that the reason for this could be because of the lack of resources to provide transcripts to go to bring to the court. Could you respond to that, please?
Very much. That's clearly false. Clearly false. You can't take 5 years to write up a simple judgment. We write a whole budget and run a country in a whole year. Just a year. So you have one decision to make. And you take 5 years? It's going to tell me because you don't have a computer or something. There are periods in the past when people had no computers. Even typewriters were like 17th century stuff. And they provided judgment in weeks. So that's an excuse for not doing your work. The only institution I know that's where people could not do their work and not have any sort of accountability in terms of performance is the present system of the courts. I can't see how anyone, some might say I shouldn't be speaking about this, but that's it. I have a responsibility to the taxpayers of this country. And I see ordinary people, and I'm not talking about decisions of government. A guy lives in Patrick's. Poor man has a simple case. He comes down to St. George's, spends money he doesn't have, and he reaches case cancelled today. He has to go back up. 5 times he does it. Case comes. Nobody's saying, well, look, sorry, or compensate him for the time he comes down. That the day he doesn't come, the case is called and judgment is given against him, he doesn't show up. And that's the excuse. Tell me what is fair about this. I'm not talking government now, I'm talking people. I have people come to me in tears. They lost their land, they lost their money. No one is held accountable. If the politician does it, noises all over the place. Let you do it. You're going to hear some noises about you. But the court, no, we mustn't say anything. They're so independent. None of us is totally independent, you know. I'm not independent. I depend on the taxpayers, I depend on everybody in the country, and I depend on every single one of us. Have a level of independence, but we're not totally independent in any sense of the word. So I'm saying a court cannot use this as an excuse. There are weaknesses in the system. Government has a responsibility. Like governments, we just discussed it in St. Lucia and the OECS heads. We should have a hall of justice with the most modern buildings. And we're moving to do precisely this. And all the countries, St. Lucia has the same problem. The Prime Minister mentioned this. He's been accused of not providing sufficient resources for the building of the courts. So we know we can do more, and we are in fact trying to do that. So government is not saying it has no role at all in delays in the system, but to blame government by itself for that delay, to me, is extremely unfair. I can't accept this. We went and supposedly went into discussion with Cable and Wireless to buy over the building for 2 of the courts. What happened? That was good intention. Turns out later, the same judges and courts says, look, the place is not fit after using it for a good period. And we have to pay over $20,000 of rent every month. No, much more than that. I can't remember. Huh? 26. They said that there are people getting sick, so we had to abandon the place. We shouldn't have noises with the court system now, you know, but because we had to abandon, we had to find other places. We went to other places, we had to leave. Now we're negotiating to get additional. It costing the taxpayers millions of dollars. So now that the government has done nothing, yes, the government can do more. You know, we can do more for public servants. We can do more for teachers. We can do more for everybody in this country. Not just for the court system, for everybody else and in the country as a whole. Okay?
Okay, I have a question in relation to the CCG. There are concerns that it should not be, that it is being rushed, and it should not be rushed. In terms of like, as it relates to the court system, I spoke about the lack of resources. There is the backlog of cases. There is the current infrastructure of the courts. What would be your response to that? The fact that these things should be addressed first before moving to the CCG.
You could wait until you die to take a decision that you have to take. There'd always be a reason why you shouldn't do it today. If I don't want to do something, I could always find a reason. Since 1984, my friend, we had the government then had a commission set up to look at moving to the CCJ, to look at the court system. The report was handed in. We spent millions of dollars, I believe, over the years on such reports. But every time you move, we're not ready yet, not enough time, you're rushing. We did it the last time. We went even to the referendum. People vote no. They didn't say just the fact that it was not enough time, but they voted no on the basis that they must not support it. For some people, as long as Keith Mitchell is in office, they would not support anything the government has any part of. This issue is not about the government. If it fails or passes, Keith Mitchell loses nothing as a person in material things. But I believe the country loses. And I would lose from the standpoint what I believe is necessary for the country's future. And I have a responsibility as a citizen, who happens also to be Prime Minister, to speak my mind and to support the things that I believe is necessary. But it has no political gain for the government. If anything, getting involved in it cannot, in my view, be any big plus politically. But some people see it as long as Keith Mitchell is there, I will not support it because Keith Mitchell will look good. This has nothing to do with me.
But you do think that those concerns in relation to the court should be addressed?
And I just pointed out a while ago, I said we should know more. And I think the leaders in the region accept, not just in Grenada. Because they're using the same argument in Antigua, you know, why the opposition in Antigua is saying, yes, we support the CCJ, but fix this for us, fix that for us. In fact, the Prime Minister told me yesterday, in one of his opponent, I'm not sure his political opponent, it could be trade union or business, he said to him, we support, you know, but you owe some money from pension and workers. Pay that first before you go to court. Right. Give me a break. So I'm just making my friend, my point is, I don't believe those persons that are saying it, they're serious about the reason why they do not want it. Because it has nothing to do with that, in my view. I respect their position, but I don't support it.
Okay, I'm going to ask one last question and give it as a chance to ask some. I'm sure you're aware of the GBN issue. What would be your response to the concerns raised by the workers right now?
I have been very transparent in my role in this particular issue. I have met with the workers, I've listened to them. I've met with the management of the station, listened to them. My advice was, and still is, there should be a meeting of the minds and each party examine their role in the present atmosphere and no one should take the view that they're all right and the other side all wrong. And therefore, that is still my advice. I have, of course, instructed the board members, the government board members on GBN to express those similar sentiments. My press secretary happened to be a member of the board. She knows that I've spoken to her in that sense. I have sympathy for the workers in the sense that clearly they're not happy. And my view is if the workers in the public service are not happy, whether I believe they should be happy or not, they're still not happy. And whatever they do will affect my performance as government. So I better listen to them. So that's why I suggest to management and owners, including my board members, that come to terms with this. Similarly, the workers must accept management has the role and responsibility, and therefore you don't have to always agree with management responsibility and decisions, but you have to understand it and accept the fact that they're the one investing their resources, the ownership, and therefore they have a responsibility, not always that will be satisfactory to everything the workers want. That's why I believe there should be a meeting of the minds. I don't know if that suggestion has been implemented yet. I still suggest that is the only way. To proceed with an unresolved situation would be the worst thing that can happen. And it appears that there's an unresolved situation still. That's all I can say.
The concerns raised by the workers, do you think that it's legitimate concerns?
No, well, I told you already. I think I spoke to that. I cannot get into the specifics because I'm not managing the operation on a day-to-day basis. And I might have my views, but I don't think it's right to express those on a personal level. I think I speak to what I consider to be the general advice I would give. Okay.
Can government play a role in resolving
Well, government is playing a role. We have representatives on the board.
Okay, but you can't share no specifics.
Well, I did already. But I said I will not give my personal view and specific views on this matter. And I think it would be highly irresponsible if I did, especially when the parties have not actually met to attempt to resolve this as an issue. There's still ongoing dispute, and I shouldn't comment otherwise. Okay?
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Prime Minister.
Good morning.
I'm seeking some clarity with something that you would have said.
Yeah.
With regard to the Rex issue, let me just go back to it a
Yes.
bit. What is the status of the court matter itself? Has it been dismissed?
No. The court ruled on one aspect. There's some aspect they agreed with us, some aspect they didn't agree with us. As you know, courts, clearly the government was going to, the party, Rex appealed one aspect of the judgment they didn't like. Government appealed one aspect of the judgment they did not like. But since the hotel has now been officially, a majority shares been sold to a new company, same company that we wanted to acquire for, because we said we didn't want to control any and run in a hotel, and we don't have the money. It's same Rex Sunwing would have had to pay for the acquisition of the hotel. So I'm saying to you that since they have in fact moved to do this and have provided reason for expanding the hotel and providing more jobs and better environment in the hotel and so on, I don't see need for government to pursue further court action and spending money for what? If you already achieved what you wanted to see, whether or not you are directly responsible or not, it's not the who is doing what, it's the end product. And the end product is we'll have an expanded hotel with a better and more recognized international chain running the hotel. And more jobs will be created and more opportunities for tourism expansion. that's what we're getting, and that's what we're interested in.
I know you said that you were supposed to have more in-depth discussion with the new majority shareholders.
Yeah, they're coming in the middle of November. They called me in yesterday while I was in St. Vincent. Call came in. They did indicate that they were coming, but they didn't give me a specific date. Yesterday they gave me, I think, November 15th or 16th, something like this. And
so do you have any indication as to how much financing will be invested? And what type of expansion?
What I know is a lot, but I can't give you the numbers. When they come here, they said that they were going to give me much more specific. What I know that it's really expanded jobs, more jobs, upgrading of the hotel. The sections of the hotel will be demolished, and new ones built, and the further areas that the Rex had was leased to Rex that were now utilized with hotel space as they had agreed. They will now be using that additional portion to expand the property.
Okay, I have quite a couple questions, but I guess the others have to ask. So I'm going to ask one more.
If Grenada get all these questions, I think you deserve some.
Okay, for the past couple of weeks, we have had many different type of stories coming up.
Yes.
One of it has to do with the Grenada Invitational,
yes.
where I like to know what is your present understanding for the games for 2019, and were you informed that the game is no longer listed on the events of activities for 2019 of the NACAC and IWF for the Caribbean region? What's your concern and what have you?
Well, my understanding is, and subject to corrections, that there are some issues unresolved. As you know, the Invitational was a private sector initiative, and government supported it and invested in it. And clearly, some problems have emerged, which would not clearly very, in our view, a positive one for the Invitational and for the country. The lack of payment of what was owed to athletes was a fundamental problem. And you know, there have been disagreements at the level of the committee responsible for implementing in fact, the head of the organization resigned. So all these uncertainties, I'm not surprised that the international body would not have had this as an item on its schedule for 2019. There may be still a possibility that it will happen, but some quick action will have to be taken, and satisfactory corrections will have to be made to the areas of that have been identified as serious weaknesses. And the government is interested, and of course has to give it some importance, because the image of the country is involved, and that therefore, in that sense, we are hoping that some results can, in fact, some positive results can occur, and that invitation can be back on for next year. If not, you may not see it next year, but certainly we would not give up on the future. Okay.
Okay. You also had announced a couple, I think it was in July, the investigation into MNIB.
Yes.
And then further announced that it was being spearheaded by the Integrity Commission.
Yes.
At the time, the AGR also announced that there were other institutions on the investigation by the Integrity Commission. Can you provide an update on the MNIB matter, as well as disclose to us the other institutions that are investigation?
Yeah, the MNIB is certainly, the Integrity Commission is proceeding with that inquiry. There are a number of preliminary work that has to be done, collecting data and information which you have sought from all parties involved. But the stage of where witnesses would be questioned under oath, that is coming. As you know, the inquiry they have to hire esteemed and independent legal persons. They sought to have resources from us, and government is the one who would have to provide it. So we have given a positive to that, and I know they are concluding the negotiations with outside legal personnel to do that inquiry, to do the investigation, and of course the taking of statements from witnesses. They may call me too, and I'm prepared, as I said before, to be called to give an idea of my knowledge of whatever information that I have. But it will be a thorough investigation. There are other areas that they are looking at. There are problems related, as I did mention, and I think so we have to be honest with ourselves. And those who don't want to admit it, that's their business. I have a conscience, and every one of us should have. If we want to say that we don't know there's corrupt practices within public service, then we can say so. Are we honest about it? And we can face our God with it. I can face him. I know as an individual that there is corruption in almost every single department of government. That's a fact. Different levels of it. Now, whether or not government will come get to the bottom of all of it, I don't know. And I probably don't believe it won't happen in my time. But we'll do what we can. And maybe you'd have to prioritize the areas that are causing the most pain and in the process of going forward. So I believe they have identified that they're looking at some weaknesses within the customs. They're also looking at, from what I understand, the Ministry of Works, another area of concerns. Clearly the hospital services, which has been in the news in recent times, but I'm assuming also will not make the investigation might not be at the same level as outright commission of inquiry, but certainly information as well, because we have audit reports that they're also looking at and coming up with and suggestions on how we can go forward in terms of those areas. There are issues with the Ministry of Agriculture, lands, for example, how some people were able to get lands and what they paid for it and things like this. There are a number of issues that are certainly would be investigated, but of course there are limited money resources to do all these investigations and of course to solve all these problems, and we just have to have patience. But for me it's difficult because I should not have to be spending time on this. I wasn't elected to go find out about who's doing wrong and so on. Yes, I have to, since I'm involved as Prime Minister, I have to be involved in making decisions and doing lots of issues and policies, but I spend a lot of my time watching over the shop. That can't be the role of a politician. So sometimes I ask myself whether this thing is becoming too much of a headache for any human being, given the problems that I see. Because I have a conscience, maybe some of us don't, but I have one. So I would only be honest. Some people get mad with me when I say certain things that is true. But I could only be honest with myself.
As it stands with the MNIB, what is the present status right now? How much money has government had to invest to keep it afloat? And in the case of the Integrity Commission, which is also linked to the MNIB, how much money is government investing to ensure that at least the MNIB...
Yeah, if I knew that was going on, I would have the exact figure. We have invested there. I know there are quite a lot of money that we have put in, certainly over $2 million so far. It might be even much more than that. But I can't give the exact, I wouldn't want to tell you exact numbers because I don't have it before me, but too much. I could qualify too much, and it's certainly over $2 million. And counting, we're not finished. Every time the staff of the Ministry of Finance, including the PS, calls me and say, oh, Lord, we have to put the money in. I say, my God, more again? Now, it is really unfair to the taxpayers of the country. And it's millions we're talking about. And we have given some resources to at least a few $100,000 to the Integrity Commission. I hope I'm accurate in that statement because I don't have the numbers before me. But we certainly have to give additional funds to them to be able to buy the services of distinguished legal persons and to hire additional people to do the Commission of Inquiry in a thorough way.
My final question for now, if I'm able to get a second round, is how concerned are you about the recent upsurge in earthquakes happening in our region? As a Minister for National Security, if something happening in the country, you are in national security.
Yes.
How concerned are you about that?
I'm concerned on two standpoints for the country and my own health, my own life. I have to. When I was in New Hampshire, the first one was
7.3.
And I was in a shop after finishing seeing people, and we were sitting there. I was having a little drink with the boys, and next thing the whole place started, all them bottles and in the shop. So what is happening? And then my security said, "PM, look outside. The vehicles that we were in just dancing." So that was a bit frightening. So I'm concerned because we are seeing it in Trinidad and other countries. We seeing more activity. I'm clear. Who don't want to believe in climate change, that's their problem. But it's obvious to me that climate change is a factor. But you know something, I left here to go to Bali. You know, they had they had their artwork. I was concerned that I thought they might have cancelled the World Bank IMF meeting. And but they didn't cancel because they had an earthquake there that caused a tsunami, and they lost some lives in Indonesia. So I thought maybe they will cancel. But Bali, you know, Indonesia is several islands. So Bali is very much, there's some parts of Bali, of Indonesia, is further than from here to New York. So clearly they said, no, they did not want to cancel. But it's strange enough, I was there, my press secretary was there too. I got up one morning to get ready to go to the gym, as you know, I have to do that every morning. The next thing in the place starts shaking. I say, well, look at my trouble. I leave Grenada, come here to go through hurricane. Hurricane looked like following me. So next thing I see my press secretary running into my room and the security find out if I'm all right. No, I was glad to get out, tell the honest truth, because they say, and the guys were smiling, the security guys in Bali, they said, well, that's a normal occurrence in Indonesia. So they didn't want us frightened. All they told me was not to go to the gym at that time, because if the worst happens and the place collapses, it collapses under you because the gym is on the last place downstairs. So they told me, wait first. So waiting an hour, and then they came and gave me all clear and said I can go.
As we speak about concerns, in recent days we have had, well, not days, but months, but in recent days, we would have a press release coming from the community relations of a senior officer involved in allegation of sexual misconduct. What is how concerned again are you about persons who are in charge of making people feel
very concerned
and are now involved and being
very concerned? My friend, I always feel I cannot tell human beings how to behave with a social life. That's them and their garden. But certainly I believe we all have a responsibility to protect our children and those around us. And no one should be able to force themselves on anyone. So I have a problem with rape of any form, whether it's a big person involved or a small person. I have a problem with people using their position to impose themselves and the will on someone unwillingly so. And I have problems with people who interfere with vulnerable people and people under age, because their laws are strictly against this, and in a general sense. And to me, one has to have a weakness of the mind and a problems up here to do some of the things that I see happening. And I always caution the men in my cabinet and my team that they have a responsibility to protect the children of our country, because we are elected as representative to protect them, not to use them. And I take that very seriously. So I am no pastor and I am no perfect person, but I certainly have some fundamental rules that I stick with and believe in very strongly. And I find it abhorrent when some of the things that I see and hear. So I support strongly any initiative to deal with those problems, to reduce it or to cut it off completely. Unfortunately, we do have some problems that we have to continue to deal with. Okay.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Rikisha St. Louis Government Information Service. On Monday, we issued a story. Well, we did a story on the flooding in Trinidad, and from Minister Galway, who said that Grenada is willing and ready to assist. That story has created quite a row on Facebook, mainly from residents of the Twin Island Republic. And one of the concerns is that the Prime Minister there has been refusing aid. Can you confirm or say whether Grenada has received any formal request for help, and what commitment can we give to them at this time?
Well, first of all, I think we are right as a country to offer help. We don't have much, but the little we have, when our friends are in need, we should offer. And the fundamental reason for this, there's something called gratitude too. Besides the normal human sympathies that we normally have when anyone is in trouble. But when somebody's been good to you, try and be good to them, especially when they need or they have difficulties. Our assumption based on what we are seeing is that Trinidad needed every support they can get. That was our assumption, because when you see a picture, it's different from being there. And therefore, I support wholeheartedly the statement made by my Minister responsible for disaster in offering help. Not only Trinidad, not only Grenada, other countries did. In my discussion with the Prime Minister, and it appears that he made the statement publicly, he's saying that whatever problem that exists, and they had in fact had problems, that Trinidad can handle it with the resources they have. And he probably feels, I'm just putting my own spin to it, that Trinidad is in a better position resource-wise to deal with problems, and even some countries that didn't have a disaster now. And that's why he's saying that he doesn't believe that Trinidad needs help right now. So that is his conclusion, and some citizens might feel aggrieved by the statement, but that's what the people of Trinidad and Tobago and their Prime Minister. I can't comment on that particular issue.
So, Mr. Prime Minister, what advice would you give to persons? Because I know over the weekend there are a lot of groups and individuals who are preparing stuff to send to Trinidad.
No, but that's a different matter. If the Prime Minister can say anything, I can say anything.
So would you say to them, go ahead?
Yeah, if you have a family or a friend and you want to help a friend in Trinidad, I don't see any reason why. You don't need the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago or Grenada to say yes, send it or not send it. You're not breaking any law. It's your choice. All the Prime Minister is saying officially from Trinidad and Tobago, the government, that he's not encouraging accepting this aid as a country. But individually, people can't do so. Okay?
Gerald Joseph, GBN. Mr. Prime Minister, going back to the Rex issue, Sunwin this month pulled out from Barbados because government is not agreeing to their demands for subsidies. You are scheduled to meet with the CEO of Sunwin next month. Is government ready, or will government provide such subsidies to Sunwin if asked?
Well, it depends on what you mean by subsidies. If subsidy means that we can give cash to them, then we don't have any cash to give anybody. If subsidies mean that we're giving concessions to a development based on the expansion, we have laws in place. If you invest in that amount, X amount, then you get X amount of concessions, duty-free. If that is what subsidies mean, then certainly we are prepared to do so. We have given, previous government has given a lot, almost everything to Sandals. We have given a lot to other hotels. So if Sunwing comes and it's within the laws of the concessions that we give, we have no problem. All I can add is that I don't know the specific situation at Barbados, but remember Barbados is now under a structural adjustment program with agreement from the IMF. They have given them some resources already, and they expect to get more. So maybe under their structural adjustment program, there are things that they cannot do now that they probably can do in a normal time. So I don't know the facts, but that could be a case.
Okay. Going back to the court issue, not in case with the decision making, the length of time it takes, but in terms of the inadequacies of the court, I think it was this week or last week, rapists are now walking free because even though they are convicted, they are placed on bail because of lack of transcripts. As the Minister for National Security, are you concerned?
Oh, very concerned. I saw the news clip last night because I just came in late and saw it at 10 o'clock news. I'm very concerned about that. I just talk about raping, and I don't know. I could feel comfortable when I see a rapist walking free because of weakness in the judicial system or the preparations of the courts. And as I said, all of us have a responsibility with issues of that nature. And it must not all be placed at the door of the government because the judicial system are independent and they act accordingly. But certainly I am concerned. Anytime anyone who breaks the law has gone scotch-free because of inadequacies in the system, is something would bring concern to us. But especially when we deal with issues of rape, I have a real problem with that. So we have to look. I'll look into it and see what was the basic fundamental reason for this.
Okay. Final question before moving on to someone else. Do you, as Prime Minister, have an update on the oil and gas issue?
Yes, and at the budget we will certainly be stating so. In this morning we had a update given by the people involved in the. So what we know is that there are confirmed resources that is being the process of tapping them to make sure that we get what we have and ensuring that we have all the parties on board who can be able to bring to fruition the material that's available, and to look at other blocks that they have not drilled yet for further resources. That is ongoing as far as that is concerned. But we believe that there are significant resources, but as Guyana would have told us, Guyana took about 13 years between the time that they verified that they had resources to the actual drilling and of course selling of the material and resources that they found. So it takes time, but they're very confident based on scientific studies and analysis, based on the information they have, that we have significant the exact amount. And for all the fields, we can't say the exact amount for all the fields, but for the few they have done so far, they've been significant resources. Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we've exceeded our time. I trust that you got a sufficient opportunity to ask your questions. Kareem, I see you have two more. I'll allow you just one because there's another event that should be taking place right after this. Proceed.
Mr. Prime Minister, I'm trying to figure out which one I should ask. Could you give me an update as it relates to the status of the students in Trinidad in relation to the flood?
I don't have any information of any problems whatsoever. So maybe Mr. Gary?
From the unit. PM, I was in contact with St. Augustine University. There was no issues there.
Okay.
I'm just gonna squeeze in the last one. Can you give me an update on the investigation into the pilfering at the hospital? Where are we with that?
Well, let me say this. I think I want to say that the issue of the hospital is not just about pilfering. They are pilfering. I'm even more concerned with the lack of appropriate healthcare service at the hospital. Because if we lose some monies because of mismanagement or corrupt practices, that's bad. But when somebody dies or did not get adequate treatment, material things can't pay for this. So I'm more concerned with the lack of appropriate services at the general hospital and hospital services in general. That would be my major concern. There are a lot of issues related to it, whether it's at the emergency unit, whether it's providing basic medicine, whether the medical services are given when it should be given, whether appropriate services, instead of one doing proper investigation. Someone comes and you tell him, go home, you're all right. The next thing the person go home and dies because they didn't do appropriate. I'm more concerned about this. And if the question was posed more appropriately to me, and if my answers were more appropriate, then I would have dealt with all those issues. But I was asked specifically about that area, and that's where I answered. And unfortunately, that became the news, unfortunately so. But I'm much more, and I want you to report this, I'm much more concerned. If we lose a few $1 million, and we lose one death, one person, I'm more concerned about the one death. But we should concern about both. Okay?
Can I just squeeze in one quickly? Thank you. Good morning. Doc, based on all that you said about the growth in the economy and all that, do you think are some of the areas that we need to focus on for the coming year? 2018 is almost done.
Well, further, those areas that are bringing us growth, but I think we need to invest even more, and we will note that on the budget on agriculture. Food security would always be number one. It's doing reasonably okay, but I think, and don't forget, marketing boards problems would have affected the agricultural sector to some extent. So I feel we should be concerned about more, but I concern more about training, because they talk about empowerment of the young people and people in general. And of course, our security area, we would have to invest more, because the safer the country, the better for all of us, economically and otherwise. These are just some of the areas, but there are others. And the budget, I can't give you the whole budget right now, but I certainly, okay?
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell. Thank you very much to members of the media. Absolute wealth of information here this morning. I hope you got all of your questions answered. As usual, if you need clarity on anything, please reach out to the Office of the Press Secretary, always willing to help and facilitate with other government departments. Thank you again for joining us for this post-cabinet press briefing held on Wednesday today to facilitate our Prime Minister, who, as he indicated, was out of the island on official business in St. Vincent, attending the LIAT meeting and the OECS authority meeting. Coming up right now, we'll have the launch of the Youth Week by the Ministry of Youth Development. And the theme for that week, empowering our youth, shaping our community, protecting our future. So persons who are listening to us via live broadcast and on the internet, do stay tuned for that upcoming event. Thank you very much.
I just want to make a point to my friend from
sure, Prime Minister.
New today.
Yes.
To say that she does an excellent job, and I hope you've been paid appropriately for the work that you're doing. And if you're not, I'll be your advocate for more pay.
Thank you.
Our Grenadian people are proudly Caribbean, and we continually strengthen the bonds of the people of the region. Together, we embrace our collective destiny.
We are the children of Marcus Garvey and Bob Marley, Vivian Richards and David Runner.
As Caribbean as West Indies cricket, as Caribbean as the University of the West Indies.
We are reggae, we are soca, we are one vibration.
Break the chain of colonialism.
Break the chains of colonialism.
The Caribbean Court of Justice. Proudly out.
The CCJ will be a Caribbean court reflective of Caribbean culture, Caribbean values, and everything Caribbean. I ask this question: which court do you think will adequately reflect the views of Caribbean people to those who worry? Will it be the Privy Council, persons in Britain, persons who have never lived in Caribbean, persons who don't share our values, persons who don't understand what we stand for and what values we uphold? Or would it be our people who have grown among us, who live among us, who attend the churches we attend, who attend the schools we attend, who are members of the soccer teams that we are members of? Who best do you think will reflect us?
It's about time. It's long overdue. We should be there because, get out of the British thing, and so we are all one Caribbean, and I think that will be binding us more together.
Yours is yours. Privy Council is not ours. No matter what we do, what we say, no matter what ties we had to England, this is the time to keep divesting ourselves of those strings that tie us unnecessarily.
There's nothing in this bill for any partisan political party. Nothing. There's only one thing in this. It's for the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, and for the Caribbean region as a whole.
Justice has to be accessible, affordable, and swift.
The National Democratic Congress is not and has never been opposed to the CCJ. In fact, previous administrations led by the NDC have done lots of work to push forward the work of the CCJ, and that can be attested to by Brother Peter David. The CCJ is another step towards the achievement of
Kevin Andal. We have Mr. Norman Gilbert, who is the coordinator of youth, and myself, Earl Williams, who is a training officer at the Ministry of Youth. And this morning we're very happy to bring to the nation's youth some welcome news, some information regarding the launch of our Youth Week, which will begin next week. So we are going to provide a lot of information to you on Youth Week, so you can be part of all the activities that we have planned for the Youth Week celebration from November 9th to 17th. At this point in time, I would like to turn over to Mr. Kevin Andal, who is our training officer, and who is our permanent secretary, Mr. Kevin Andal, who is going to give some information regarding the Youth Week celebration and the activities.
Good morning to all in our lovely island of Grenada. This morning I would just like to give just a small synopsis of what a Youth Week celebration or Youth Month celebration is really about. And the National Youth Week celebration 2018 is a very important event for us, because in the past the ministry has embarked on the form of celebration for young people within our country in the form of a month of activities. We have not had a Youth Week or Youth Month celebration for the last 5 years, and therefore this year is a reintroduction of that event. It is abbreviated from in the past, because in the past was a month, now it's a week. And this is because of the trend in youth development work all over the Caribbean. Most territories has moved from having a month of activities to a week of activities, which focuses on or concentrate the activities in such a way that young people can actively participate for a short period of time and to give more impact. This year, it is important to understand why a Youth Week celebration. It's really to create awareness of the initiatives that are available to young people and what young people are doing, and to celebrate the achievement of our youth and also the ministry as we endeavor to empower young people. But most importantly, it's also a reflective exercise whereby we look at what we have done and where we should be going, actively participating with young people to do that. I would like to say that the youth constituent is a very important constituent for the government, and we have embarked on a number of events. And the minister would outline some of these events, a number of these events. It's a lot. This month is really to highlight those events, to bring it to the fore, so that young people from every walks of life in Grenada would know what is available for them, but mostly how they can get involved in those activities. I just want to say that the youth celebration is not isolated. It's not something that we just come up with and we say, let us just do it. It is entrenched within our youth development agenda, and it is reflected within our National Youth Policy 2015 to 2020, which really focuses on 4 major areas: the economic empowerment of our young people, youth participating in nation building, building youth resilience, and professionalizing youth work. Youth Week celebration is stream right all of these events. And I would like to say that the theme for this year is a true reflection of our national youth agenda, which is empowering our youth, shaping our communities, and protecting our future. I would like to say it again: empowering our youth, shaping our communities, protecting our future. On behalf of this ministry, I would like to encourage all young persons within Grenada to participate in these activities, as Mr. Gilbert would outline those activities, what they are, and as the minister would go further into explore the whole aspect of our youth celebration and the youth development work in Grenada. So thank you very much for allowing me to give this brief.
Thank you very much, P.S. Andel, for the information. And as we say, our theme is empowering our youth, shaping our future, and shaping our community, and protecting our future. So we look at it in 3 ways: empowerment, shaping the community, and protecting those to come. All right, so we now move to Mr. Norman Gilbert, the acting coordinator of youth, and he's going to provide for us a description of the Youth Week activities. Mr. Gilbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Honorable Minister Lewis, our Permanent Secretary, Mr. Kevin Handel, and of course, other officers of the ministry, media personnel, pleasant good morning. As indicated earlier, we are celebrating Youth Week 2018 under the theme Empowering Our Youth, Empowering Our Communities, and Protecting Our Future. As part of the activities for the week of celebration, we will begin with an address by our minister, who would address the nation in terms of our youth development agenda, what are the contemporary issues affecting our young people, government's commitment to youth development, as well as the ministry's commitment to ensuring that young people are developed in accordance with the 4 pillars as outlined by our PS as part of our National Youth Policy 2015-2020. Sunday, November 11th, would be our first major activity. Sorry, Saturday, November the 10th would be our first major activity, which will be a fitness revolution and health fair that would take place in the parish of St. John. The health fair would start the day at 10 in the morning. That would be at the Cuthbert Peters Park in St. John. And there will be a health walk that would start at Concord in St. John, leading into the Cuthbert Peters Park that starts at 3:30 in the afternoon. As part of the health fair and the fitness revolution, there would also be activities at the park at the completion of the health walk. And that would be some exercise activities and so forth that would take place in partnership with other fitness clubs that are on the Western Corridor and other fitness organizations around the island. The peace concert would be on November 11th, potentially to be held at the Grenville bus terminus. And the peace concert will showcase our talent in terms of our young people who are going to be promoting positive music, positive lyrics, dance, theater, etc. We are going to be having a number of artists who we know are very locally recognized, as well as artists would be able to keep the attention and focus for young people by bringing forth good messages. That peace concert would obviously be open to all persons around the island. We will try to make available opportunities for persons who are living on the outer parishes to get into the bus terminus on the 11th of November. On Tuesday, November 13th, the minister will be engaging a number of inmates at Her Majesty's Prison as part of the Minister Meet the Youth at Prison. Currently, the ministry has a program at the prison referred to as Project Reach, which engages approximately 30 inmates under the age of 35 in a set of programs that focuses on life skills, soft skills, technical vocational skills, small business development, etc. On that day in particular, it would not solely be the participants of this project, but the minister would have an opportunity to address young persons at the prison, the general prison population, and we believe it's an excellent opportunity to engage and transform the lives of persons who have been incarcerated, who falls directly within the age of youth as part of their reintegration into the society. On November the 15th would be our National Youth Awards, Imani graduation for batches 4 and 5, and Gala. This activity would be at the Spice Basket, and that would begin at 5 in the p.m. The National Youth Awards would focus on recognizing the achievements of young persons who have displayed exemplary behavior and performance. We would be awarding a number of young persons in professional fields, such as in the area of law, policing, nursing. We're also going to be having some national sporting awards, sports man and woman, youth, that is. We're also going to be recognizing key stakeholders who have contributed to the development of our youth development agenda and have been supportive of the ministry's initiatives. We're also going to be doing what we refer to as a Lifetime Achievement Award for one person who would have made significant contribution to the area of youth development over the years. We are also going to be recognizing outstanding media personalities and media houses who would have supported youth development work, not only from the ministry's level, but nationally. We are also going to be recognizing outstanding youth organizations who have been toiling in the field in terms of youth development and voluntary work, as well as ensuring that we also award some academic achievements, and there will be awards given to top performers at national academic institutions, which includes TAMCC as well. Additionally, on the day, there would also be awards that would be given to outstanding Imani trainees who have excelled within the last 3 or 4 years of the engagement as part of batches 4 and 5. We are also going to be awarding outstanding business partners, partners who would have supported the program in terms of its implementation and its apprenticeship part of the program. We are also going to be awarding some direct skills training providers who would have been training our trainees and providing them with the technical skills over the years. And of course, that would conclude with a nice gala event that celebrates youth. We have not really had an award, as PS would have indicated earlier, for over 5 years, and so we want to recognize the contribution of young people. November the 16th to the 18th would be our National Youth Service weekend, and the National Youth Service, as indicated, would be to provide opportunities for young persons, volunteers, organizations that deal with youth to be able to give back to their communities. And so we expect there will be a lot of service activities over that weekend, voluntary services. As a ministry, we are also going to be engaging in 3 projects around the island that would involve a number of volunteers from staff, community organizations, youth as part of that service weekend. Saturday, November 17th would be our National Youth Expo, and cultural explosion that would be at Hero Square in Victoria in St. Mark, where we are going to be engaging a number of persons who have had opportunities to be exposed to training in fashion design, craft, arts, and culture. That event would be in collaboration with the St. Mark's Development Committee, and they would also be having their St. Mark's Food Fest celebration on that day as well. And we would be celebrating our cultural pieces. We're going to have the maypole dancing, etc., the Wild Indian, Apache, Veco, etc., all part of the event, which encompasses youth, and the participants themselves would be young people themselves. While I mentioned those activities that would ensure that Youth Week is celebrated nationally here in Grenada, we also have a number of activities that will be celebrated on the Sister Isle in Carriacou that would also celebrate the young people in Carriacou and Petit Martinique for their contribution over the last few years. That would entail the celebration of youth in Carriacou would entail a youth parliament that would be held on October the 31st. The National Church Service for Carriacou and Petit Martinique on October the 28th. Some personal development workshops for young people in Carriacou, also on November 20th. November the 21st will be a national youth panel discussion that focuses or engages youth in Carriacou and Petit Martinique. The graduation ceremony for Imani trainees batch 4 would be in Carriacou on the 29th. And to conclude the week of activities in Carriacou will be a national concert on November the 30th. And that brings an end to the celebration of our Youth Week activities for 2018. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gilbert. So I trust that you have the dates all correct, and we're ready to go for the launch and the execution of the activities for the upcoming Youth Week, celebrating, empowering our youth, shaping our community, and protecting our future. We now turn to our Minister, Honorable Kate Lewis, who is going to give some remarks on the decoration of Youth Week and the Youth Week activities. Minister.
Thank you very much, our training officer and chairperson for this morning's press briefing, Mr. Earl Williams. I recognize the PS Kevin Andel, and also our acting coordinator of youth, Mr. Norman Gilbert. I also say good morning to you members of the media. I know you've been having a long morning, and to those of our listeners and viewers who are tuned in. The Ministry of Youth Development continues to actively engage thousands of young persons across our Tri-Island states in several different types of programs and activities specially geared towards their development and advancement. Our main focus is to develop programs and projects aimed at preparing our future leaders, our future workforce, educators, and entrepreneurs so that they can contribute meaningfully to our nation's development. The month of October thus far has been very active for us. We have had the launch of Project Fly in the parishes of St. David and St. John's on October 4th and 18th respectively. On October 12th, the Ministry of Youth Development was extremely proud to launch the Empower program, providing an opportunity for 500 young men from across the length and breadth of Grenada to work on their self-development and academic enhancement. Also, during this month, we have held a series of Block Vibe sessions engaging our young persons who will not normally attend planned consultative sessions. So we decided to meet them on their turf where they are most comfortable. Have been held thus far in the area of Paradise, that's inside the Cocoa in St. Andrew, Gun Battle in the Tongue of Gov, St. John, and Vincennes, the area Mount Tranquil, Vincennes, St. David. We will continue to have our block vibes in specifically targeted areas. The new Imani program continues to be a program of hope, opportunity,
and empowerment for many young persons across Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. On Friday, October 26, we will welcome over 800 young men and women to join the program as we begin batch 6 of this life-changing Imani program. The Government of Grenada and the Ministry of Youth Development, Sports, Culture and the Arts, we recognize how important our young people are towards our nation's present and future development. We will continue to invest heavily in the education and training of our youth, and we will not spare any efforts in creating the enabling environment for our young persons to unleash their creative energies and to put innovative ideas to work so that they can positively contribute towards our economic and social development. In light of all this, I am delighted to announce that we will celebrate Youth Week 2018 from November 9th to the 17th. Under the theme, Empowering Our Youth, Shaping Our Community, Protecting Our Future. This theme captures the work of the Ministry of Youth Development thus far through the series of training programs and projects embarked on. As we approach 2019, we will continue to focus heavily on this theme and strengthen our programs and projects to ensure that our young persons are fully equipped so that they will be able to make valuable contributions towards our nation's development. We look forward to an exciting and meaningful week of activities that will occur in the different parts of our country. I therefore encourage all of us, both young and old, to participate and to show support for all the activities scheduled as we celebrate our young people in 2018. It will be a great show of talent and creativities of our country's future, as well as recognition of their hard work and contributions made throughout the year towards our nation's development. I therefore look forward and encourage all of us to support Youth Week 2018. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the information. As we move forward in celebrating our Youth Week, empowering our youth, shaping our community, and protecting our future. At this point, we would like to open up the floor for questions and answers that could be directed to the head table.
Good morning. It is evident that the ministry has been doing quite a lot in terms of youth development. My first question is, why a 5-year break?
That question is a very important question, and it deserves an answer. The answer is this, that the ministry looks at different aspects of youth development. And for the last 5 years, we looked at that last part of the youth policy, which is professionalization of the youth sector. So we focus a lot on developing all the structures, putting all the systems in place so that we can launch forward as we're doing now. So what you've seen in recent time in terms of our programming is not by accident. It is by design. That now we are ready. Now the systems are in place. The capacity of the human resource within the division is fully energized to go forward. So it was strategic that we said that let us spend 5 years developing our systems, and we did that. So now it is a celebration. We're celebrating what we have achieved in the last 5 years and building on what we can do more in the next 5 years. So that is the reason.
Mr. Gilbert, in terms of the awards and recognition, how are they, what criteria are you following to recognize these individuals? And probably you can give me a period in which you're looking, you were observing them, that kind of thing.
All right, so as I indicated earlier, we have some national awards, and we do have a process by which those persons would be selected. The areas highlighted where we have national organizations, we have written to those national organizations for nominations from these organizations for individuals for the various outstanding positions. Additionally, we have umbrella organizations that are specifically focused, for example, the RGPF, where we are going to be identifying a young officer, and the RGPF would assist or support in terms of making that nomination as the best possibly placed organization or entity to do so. We also have areas where we internally would have to make some decisions in terms of the entities that support youth development work, the stakeholders that support youth development work. We are quite aware of those entities that have supported our work for the last 5 years, and we believe that we are in a good position to make those nominations. So we are going to be inviting nominations from general public, from national entities, and we have a period by which these entities should submit the nominations, and the deadline for submission is the 9th of November, and we have already have some nominations received, and we have some outstanding ones. So once we have received all those nominations, a small committee that is set up would be responsible for making the final determinations, and the necessary persons to be awarded would be informed of their selection.
Is there any more questions? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of our press briefing this morning. Just to quickly recap, that our Youth Week will begin on the 9th of November, and we run up to the 17th, and our theme for that week is empowering our youth, shaping our community, and protecting our future. We'd like to thank you very much for being here this morning to be part of the discussion, and as we move forward, we are looking for success and completion of all the projects and programs of the Ministry of Youth. Thank you.
Before we leave, I just would like to say that you can follow us on Grenada Division of Youth Development on Facebook and also on Instagram. We'll be posting all of our activities there, and we'll be carrying most of our activities live, so we want young people to follow us and spread the word, because we're doing great things. Thank you very much.
Our Grenadian people are proudly Caribbean, and we continually strengthen the bonds of the people of the region. Together, we embrace our collective destiny.
We are the children of Marcus Garvey and Bob Marley, Vivian Richards and David Runner.
As Caribbean as West Indies cricket, as Caribbean as the University of the West Indies.
We are reggae, we are soca, we are one vibration.
Break the chain of colonialism.
Break the chains of colonialism.
The Caribbean Court of Justice. Proudly out.
The Caribbean Court of Justice, reaching one unity, coming together as one. Hear what we say. When you see November 6th, we voting against all the CCJ. Come out and make the right decision. It benefits in everybody. The Caribbean Court of Justice is what I come to promote. So when that time we just stick, make sure you go out and vote, believe it. Let us get it right. I say everything has to fix. One Caribbean, one community. CCJ, yes, they have the remedy. Oh, the CCJ, yeah. Come November 6th, every Caribbean island I calling out one and all. Oh, the CCJ, yeah.
Yes, the CCJ, that's it. Vote yes to the CCJ,
Folks, you know my stance and you know I'm a principled person. I have stated very, very clearly that the CCJ is the way to go, and it is inevitable. Look, now people could have reservation and you have a right to, that's your business. But at the end of it all, we would have to handle our own affairs here in the Caribbean. We would have to have our own system, and I am simply saying the time is now. The time is here for us to do so. And look, we can have disagreements. We can look. I've stated on the program my position, and there are people who say straight up, Kem, I don't agree with your position, and they challenge and they say certain things, and I respect that. We should have a healthy debating going forward. Tomorrow we will have Joseph Roberts or some of his acquaintances or some of his colleagues to come in and speak about the CCJ, and you have the opportunity to ask a number of questions the same way. But I am telling you folks, you have listened to me many a years. I am confident that the CCJ is the way to go. It may not be perfect, and nothing in life is perfect. Nothing in life except God himself. But I am simply saying this is something that you need to look at. Give it a try. Look at it. Listen to the both arguments. I am convinced that the CCJ is better for this region than the Privy Council at this point in time. And I am saying it will be better for many, many years to come. So I am simply asking of you to vote yes for the CCJ.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is not about me, this is about all of you and all of us. But I want to say one thing before we start. In 1979, a number of our young people did something that reverberated around the world. Something that it may not have lasted forever, but has. In a world of no cell phone and no internet and no fax machine or nothing like that, has established institutions that today we are very proud of. MNIB, National Insurance Board, and the airport. You know, we should have been the first one signing on to the CCJ. We should have been. I don't know what happened, but given what we did then, we should have been the first. So keep that in the back of your minds with those of you who have all the excuses in the world as to why we shouldn't do it.
Grenada is about to embark on another historic mission of amending its constitution for the first time since its independence. From all indication, the push is for the changes to be made before the end of the year, 2 years after the first attempt failed.
I believe the CCJ is an important issue to take a second look at. And we're involving the same people, the community group, the legal professions, and other parties involved. And hopefully we'll have everyone playing a very united role in going forward, because if we do not work together, then clearly it's not necessarily going to pass. And I think it would be a tragedy of justice for this country and for the Caribbean. But I think it's about time that we stop having faith in everybody else but ourselves. All people, jurists have served regional and international institutions around with distinction. And it would be, to me, almost an insult to say to ourselves that we cannot be responsible for justice in our country.
2 years ago, 8 bills were tabled for constitution change. But this time around, the focus is on one which, if successful, will see the Caribbean Court of Justice replacing the London Privy Council as the final court of appeal. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell, who was re-elected to office by a landslide victory on March 13, 2018, says he intends to play an active role this time around.
And the CCJ so far has demonstrated that it has stood out in terms of its decision-making process. And no one can say that the governments who are now the countries that are now part of the CCJ are getting decisions based on the govern those in political office. So in that sense, the people should be very happy that it's very independent judicial process, and I certainly, as a Grenadian and a Caribbean man, I certainly would want to support it. I will play a much more active role this time than I did the last time.
The bill seeking the constitutional change is already out. It's called the Constitution of Grenada Caribbean Court of Justice and Other Justice-Related Matters Amendment Bill 2018, one of the 8 attempted 2 years ago. It includes almost everything in the 2016 bill, but removed are the sections that speak about the code of conduct for public officials and the swearing allegiance to the country. Debate has continued over the years about doing away with the Privy Council and replacing it with the Caribbean Court of Justice system, the CCJ. The Privy Council in London and the CCJ based in Trinidad are both a final court of appeal that retries civil and criminal cases if the original ruling is thought not to be satisfactory. But proponents argue that the CCJ, formed and operated by the Caribbean people, would allow for a sense of independence and would make access to a fair trial much easier.
The arguments in favor of independence, the CCJ being an independent court, and in fact, the CCJ being one of the most independent courts in terms of structure and appointment of judges, not just in the region, but it is used as a model for other courts, particularly in relation to financing and in relation to the selection of judges. And that ultimately is the test.
There have been some recurring points of concerns about the idea of the CCJ as Grenada's final court of appeal, access, cost, and the likelihood of political interference.
What the CCJ has done and what has been approved with respect to the CCJ is the setting up of this independent trust fund that is managed by a board of trustees. And what is important about that board of trustees and the composition of that board of trustees is that you have no politicians at all on that board.
Former Minister of Legal Affairs Elvin Nimrod tabled the bill in Parliament in 2016. Newly appointed Minister of Legal Affairs Honorable Kindra Mathurin Stewart says the implementation of the CCJ to Grenada will enhance the judiciary system of the trial and state.
For Grenada to have access to the CCJ as its final appellate court, that would mean for us here in Grenada that our people would have greater access to justice. As you know, with the Privy Council, persons had to travel far to England to access the Privy Council. But of course, the CCJ is right next door, and I believe, of course, with its location and its ease of access, that locals, ordinary people like me and you, would be able to have access to justice.
The Legal Affairs Minister says she believes there are competent experts here that are capable to execute the process.
I believe that we in the Caribbean are capable of creating and making our own jurisprudence. We don't have to depend on English judges and English folks to make jurisprudence for us. And I believe that we are well capable. We've had notable jurists and persons coming out or emanating from the Caribbean, CARICOM. And I believe that we possess that talent, we possess that experiences, and I believe that we are well poised to create our own jurisprudence. That in its sense alone too would basically signal, of course, a greater independence for us as an independent nation of Grenada, Carriacou and Petit Martinique.
In October of 2016, the Grenada Constitution reform was held, where citizens took to the polls to cast their ballots for or against the implementation of the CCJ as the final appellate court. Constitution reform process then was denied based on the outcome of the votes. Although CARICOM created the CCJ as a replacement for the Privy Council, it did not fully replicate the British system. Instead, it chose to copy certain practices while creating other divergent ones. Residents here say while they are willing to accept the change, there must be proper consultation on the subject.
Public education, and my first observation is that there are too many lessons or if not lessons, too many chapters, or if not chapters, too many books to be learned within that space of time. The bills, the issues for the referendum, they are significant enough and far-reaching to have what I refer to as a limited time.
That of the CCJ, which country like Trinidad, Barbados, country which implemented that CCJ and they are ineffective already, they still go to the Privy Council for hearing in the jurisdiction. So we go into the CCJ now. We are neglecting the Privy Council and go to the CCJ. And them countries which are still implementing the CCJ, the Privy Council for a hearing. So how that go be looking when we neglect the Privy Council and go to the CCJ, and them countries which implemented the CCJ are still under the Privy Council?
During the swearing-in ceremony, after winning all 15 seats at the 2018 general election, Prime Minister Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell reassured the nation that consultation and education on the process will soon resume.
As each of us seeks to protect and save our children, we must look out also for our neighbors' children. And to the broader issue of justice. And as it is also related to our independence and to our national identity, we must open up a dialogue again about joining the Caribbean Court of Justice.